Every woman carries a secret, an unspoken fantasy she'll never share with her friends, never post online, and never confess to the man she truly desires. She'll laugh it off, dismiss it with words like, "I'm fine," or "I don't think about things like that." But she does. Hidden beneath the surface are fantasies of surrender, of being desired without restraint, of losing control in a world where she must always appear in control. She won't admit it, because putting it into words feels too raw, too vulnerable, too exposing. But if you can recognize these hidden desires for what they are, you'll see a side of female psychology most men never grasp. And once you see it, you'll never look at women the same way again. The first fantasy: total surrender. Even the strongest, most independent woman secretly longs for release. Not weakness, release. In daily life, she's in charge. She makes decisions, carries responsibilities, and moves as if she doesn't need anyone. But deep down, she craves the rare man strong enough to take the weight off her shoulders so she can finally let go. This isn't about force. It's about power. Not power demanded, but power earned. Not power spoken, but power felt. When she imagines surrender, she's not picturing submission to just anyone. She dreams of a man so grounded, so in command of himself, that she can trust him completely. Psychologists call it erotic power exchange, where desire grows not from equal control, but from polarity. For her, it means freedom. Freedom from decisions. Freedom from responsibility. Freedom from always being the strong one. In her fantasy, she doesn't have to think, worry, or fight. The man she desires simply knows. He leads with confidence, speaks with certainty, and acts with decisiveness. And it's in that space her fantasy comes alive. Because the more power he holds, the more she aches to surrender hers. Most men never awaken this side of her because they fear leadership. They hide in passivity, waiting for her to choose, to initiate, to decide. And with every hesitation, her secret fantasy slips away. But the man who leads without insecurity, who guides with calm, unshakable confidence, he becomes the embodiment of her most dangerous, intoxicating dream. Second, the fantasy of being desired without restraint. Here's the truth. Women are approached constantly. Compliments, attention, admiration, yet most of it is shallow. Men who want them casually, superficially, or only for a moment. What she craves in silence is something deeper. A raw, almost uncontrollable desire that makes her feel like the only woman on earth. Not desperation, not clinging, but depth. It's in the way your gaze lingers, not because you're weak, but because you see what others miss. It's in the weight of your presence, the intensity of your focus, the unspoken message. If the world ended tomorrow, I would still want you the same way. Psychologists call this the total object of desire effect. When a woman feels completely consumed, not just her body, but her mind, her quirks, her entire being, this fantasy isn't about how many men want her. It's about one man whose desire runs so deep it borders on obsession. And here's the paradox. She'll never admit it. She'll never say, "I want you to want me," like you can't stop yourself. Because society trains women to hide this hunger, to fear being judged, shamed, or misunderstood. And so the fantasy stays unspoken, lingering in her mind. The Stoic man doesn't gush, doesn't fawn, doesn't drown her in constant praise. Instead, he shows desire through presence. His focus is steady, his touch deliberate, his silence charged with meaning. She feels it deep inside, that beneath his calm exterior burns a fire that sees her as more than just another woman. That restrained intensity makes her crave him even more. This is the secret fantasy she'll never admit. To be wanted fully, completely, without restraint, by a man who could have anyone, yet chooses her. Fantasy number 3. The loss of control in the heat of passion. For most of her life, control defines her world. She controls her emotions in public, her appearance, her words, her reputation. But in her hidden desires, there's a longing to surrender it all, to lose control entirely in the arms of a man strong enough to hold it. Picture this: her voice rising without thought, her body responding before her mind can catch up, her emotions flooding out raw and unfiltered. To everyone else, she's polished, measured, composed. But with him, the man who awakens this side of her, she's messy, wild, unrestrained. And instead of being judged, she's embraced. Psychologists call this erotic disinhibition, the urge to escape rules, to stop holding everything together, and to experience herself fully, without shame. That's why so many women fantasize about moments where passion drowns control, because in reality, they're rarely given the chance to let go. But here's the truth. This fantasy only unlocks with a man she completely trusts. Without trust, letting go feels dangerous. With trust, it feels divine. Most men never see this side of a woman because they're too focused on themselves, on their performance, their pleasure, their ego. But the man who watches, listens, and creates the space for her storm to erupt safely, that man is unforgettable. Here's the paradox. The more disciplined and grounded you are, the freer she feels to be wild. And that freedom, that surrender, is the very heart of her deepest fantasy. 4. The fantasy of being chosen exclusively in a world full of temptations. She sees it everywhere: the attention, the flirty comments, the late-night messages, the constant pull of connection, every glance, every double tap, every casual compliment. It's all noise, and beneath it all, she carries one silent truth. She doesn't want to be just another option. She craves the feeling of being chosen by a man who could go anywhere with anyone but decides on her. Not out of convenience, not out of boredom, but out of something real. To her, this isn't jealousy. It's emotional safety. It's proof that his desire isn't driven by novelty, but by depth. Psychologists call it perceived scarcity. The more choices exist, the more value is placed on the one that stands apart. And when a man makes it clear she is that choice, it leaves a mark she never forgets. It shows in the gestures that matter. Cancelling plans when she needs him. Introducing her as my woman instead of just a friend. Making decisions with her in mind, even when easier paths are available. But here's the paradox. Society tells women to hide this desire, to smile, to play it cool, to act like it doesn't matter if he's texting someone else. And yet, in quiet moments, her heart trembles, because her deepest fantasy isn't about being chased, it's about being chosen above the rest. The man who unlocks this fantasy doesn't need grand promises. He needs consistency, loyalty, proof in small moments that she is worth more than the world's distractions. That's the fortress she secretly longs to live in. 5. The fantasy of being fully seen, brains, body, and battle scars. She knows how to dress up. She knows how to captivate a room. But beneath the polish, she dreams of something rare, being seen completely. Not just her beauty, but her brilliance. Not just her charm, but her scars. Not just her strength, but the fears she hides. In this fantasy, her struggle isn't ignored. It's optional. She doesn't have to be perfect. She doesn't have to pretend. She wants a man who notices the small cracks beneath the surface and still calls it beautiful. Because to be seen truly seen, is to be loved without condition. Her vulnerability isn't something to hide, it's something to honor. Her intelligence isn't something to dim, it's something to celebrate. Her past pain isn't something to erase, it's something to recognize. At her core, she wants someone who sees the entire spectrum of who she is and chooses to stay. Psychology calls this integrated identity and secure attachment. The human need not only to be loved, but to be known. Research into women's fantasies, whether around submission, power dynamics, or emotional depth, shows a common thread. Erotic desire often fuses with emotional safety, the place where she can reveal her scars without fear of rejection. So, how do you awaken that fantasy? It's not about grand gestures. It's about presence. It's about remembering the things she once whispered, laughing at the details she thinks go unnoticed, letting her show her battle scars without flinching, validating her intellect, her dreams, and her fears. Because when a woman feels truly seen, not just admired, her defenses fall. She softens. And what begins as desire transforms into devotion. If you're ready to unlock more of these hidden truths about female psychology, the ones women rarely admit, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop the word secret in the comments if you've ever felt like a woman wanted more from you than she could say out loud. Because once you understand these hidden desires, you'll never miss the signals again.